The woman sat on the curb beneath a flickering hospital street lamp, her coat soaked through, arms wrapped around trembling knees. It was just past midnight in the town of Red Hollow, and no one should have been outside in that rain. Not unless they had a reason. She didn't flinch when the dog approached. He was soaked too, a black and tan German shepherd, limping slightly, ribs visible through damp fur. He stopped 3 feet away and stared at her, not like a stray, but like something else, like he knew her. Then he dropped something at her feet, and everything changed. Red Hollow, population 3,184, was a kind of place where gas stations still had hand-painted signs, and church bells rang for weddings, deaths, and little else. Its hills roll with green in summer, fog in fall, and snow in winter. But even under gray skies, people waved. Doors stayed unlocked. Secrets, though, those didn't stay buried for long. Not usually. It was a Monday when Evelyn Moore found herself back at Ridgeview Hospital. She hadn't meant to stay this long. Just drop off the paperwork, check in on Dr. Sanders, and leave. But hours passed. Night fell. Rain came. She hadn't seen her sister yet. Couldn't. Not like this. Evelyn stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching the red neon letters hum above the ER entrance. Her hand clutched the folder tight against her chest, restraining order drafts, medication logs, a note from the home nurse. Useless things now. A sob escaped before she could stop it. She slid down the brick wall behind her and cradled her head in her arms. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to cry. That's when she heard the low, rhythmic pad of paws. The German shepherd stepped out of the mist. No collar, no tags. His coat was matted, but his eyes were bright, fixed on her like he recognized something she didn't. "Hey," Evelyn whispered, sitting up. "You shouldn't be here." He tilted his head. Then, slowly, deliberately, the dog limped forward and dropped something on the wet concrete in front of her. It was a child's shoe. Small, pink, Velcro strap broken. A faded sticker of a cartoon unicorn peeled at the toe. Evelyn's heart stopped. It was Maya's. She scrambled to her feet, grabbing the shoe. How do you have this?" she asked, voice cracking. But the dog only turned and trotted into the dark. Without thinking, Evelyn followed. 15 minutes earlier, Deputy Caleb Rhodes had been watching the storm roll in from his squad car at the south end of town. Rain came down in sheets now, painting the windshield in streaks. He sipped lukewarm coffee and scanned the dispatcher log. Nothing tonight. No calls, no disturbances. A quiet evening, until his radio crackled to life. Unit 2 to 7, we've got a possible code 73 at Ridgeview Hospital. Unverified. Female reported seeing a child's item linked to missing case file number 042. Caleb froze. Code 73. Missing persons. He grabbed the mic 2 to 7 en route. As he sped toward the hospital, adrenaline humming in his veins, the dashboard lights briefly illuminated an old scar on his temple, the kind you don't get from falling down. It throbbed, like it always did when something bad was coming. He didn't know then that Evelyn Moore had just stepped back into the nightmare they'd buried 9 months ago. Evelyn followed the dog past the ER lot, down a gravel slope toward the woods behind Ridgeview. She should have turned back, should have told someone. But something in her wouldn't let go, not after the shoe. Rain soaked through her boots. Branches clawed at her coat. Still, the shepherd moved forward with eerie certainty, glancing back every few seconds to make sure she was following. The forest opened into a clearing. At the center, a rotting storage shed leaned sideways like a drunk. It hadn't been used in years. Last time Evelyn saw it, she and her sister used to cut through here on their bikes to get to the quarry. The dog stopped by the door, barked once. Evelyn stepped forward, hesitated, then reached for the rusted handle. It creaked open. She nearly vomited. Inside, on the dirt floor, was a pile of children's clothes, soggy, torn, and half buried in mud. A small blanket, faded blue with yellow stars. A plush fox missing one eye. And a camera. Evelyn stared at it like it might bite. Her hands shook as she picked it up. Then someone behind her whispered, "Put that down." Caleb arrived at the hospital just as the nurse was describing the woman who'd been crying in the rain. Mid-30s, brown coat, dark hair. She took off toward the woods. She She was talking to a dog. A dog. The nurse nodded. Yeah, Shepherd, I think. Weirdest part? It wasn't hers. Caleb's jaw clenched. He remembered a case. 9 months ago. A missing girl. No suspects. The child had vanished in daylight from the back of her grandmother's yard. The only clue? A Shepherd sighting reported by a hiker near mile marker 17. Everyone had dismissed it, except Caleb. Now the Shepherd was back, and Evelyn Moore, Maya's aunt, was chasing ghosts into the trees. Evelyn turned. A man stepped out of the dark. Late 40s, long coat, wet boots. His face was unshaven, eyes cold. She didn't recognize him. I said, "Put that down." Her voice came out thin. "Who are you?" "I could ask you the same thing," he said, slowly moving forward. "This is private property." She looked back at the camera. "There are children's clothes in here." He didn't flinch. "People dump things in the woods all the time. This isn't trash." A pause, then a smile, small, unsettling. "Maybe you should go back to the hospital." The Shepherd growled low behind her. The man noticed, tilted his head. "That your dog?" Evelyn didn't answer. He took a step closer. Then the dog lunged. Caleb's headlights sliced through the trees as he reached the trailhead behind the hospital. The nurse had pointed him that way. He stepped out into the downpour, flashlight sweeping across roots and brush. That's when he heard the bark, the snarl, and then a scream. He ran. The Shepherd collided with a man mid-step, teeth flashing. The stranger went down hard, shouting. Evelyn didn't wait. She grabbed a camera, turned, and ran. Branches whipped her face. Her foot caught something. She hit the ground hard. Mud in her mouth. Camera skidding into the dark. Footsteps behind her. Then a flashlight beam. A voice. Evelyn. She looked up. Caleb. His uniform soaked, gun drawn, eyes wide. He helped her up, scanning the woods. Who was he? Caleb asked. I don't know. He was waiting. He told me to drop the camera. There's stuff in the shed. Children's things. Caleb's face darkened. He motioned her behind him, gun steady, and they moved back toward the clearing. But the man was gone. The dog, too. Only the shed remained. Silent. The children belongings soaked in fresh rain. The camera sat half buried near the door. Caleb picked it up carefully. No memory card, he muttered. But Evelyn's eyes weren't on the camera anymore. They were on the initials carved into the doorframe. Faded. Nearly lost the time. M+E Summer 99. She whispered, this was ours. Caleb looked at her. Evelyn barely heard him. Her mind was elsewhere, on memories of bikes, bloodied knees, laughter, and something else. The day her sister stopped going into the woods. By the time they reached the hospital again, Evelyn's hands had stopped shaking, but only just. Caleb walked beside her in silence, boots squelching in the mud. The Shepherd hadn't returned. Neither had the man, and that was the worst part. They'd vanished like they were never there. The ER lobby lights buzzed overhead, too bright, too sterile. Evelyn kept her arms crossed, still clutching the pink shoe like it might disappear if she let go. Caleb tapped at the camera's casing with his knuckle. No serial number. No brand. This thing looks off. Could be homemade. Evelyn stared at it. What kind of person makes a camera from scratch? The kind who doesn't want to be found. Back in his office, Caleb reviewed the past missing persons reports. Maya's file was at the top of the stack. 8 years old. Vanished during a Sunday cookout. No forced entry. No witnesses. No prints. Her Aunt Evelyn had been cleared. So had her sister, though reluctantly. No charges were ever filed. But now a camera and a dog had led them to a hidden pile of children's belongings in the woods, not 10 minutes from Ridgeview. He looked up as Evelyn entered. I couldn't sleep, she said. Caleb gestured to the extra chair. Me either. She sat, stiff and hollow-eyed. There's something I haven't told anyone, Evelyn said after a moment, because no one would believe it. Caleb leaned forward. Maya used to draw him. Evelyn whispered. The dog. Months before she disappeared. She called him Shadow. Said he was watching the woods. We thought it was just imagination. But the pictures, they were always the same. A big black and tan shepherd with scars. You think this is the same dog? Evelyn nodded. He's real. Caleb reached into a drawer, pulled out a small box, and placed on the table. What's that? Trail cam footage, he said. Set up near mile marker 17 last month. I didn't tell anyone because there wasn't much except for this. He slid a still frame toward her. It was blurry, grainy, but clear enough. The shepherd stood between the trees, head turned toward the lens. Behind him, barely visible, a figure stood among the pines. Human-shaped, face obscured. Evelyn leaned in, breath caught. He's not just wandering. No, Caleb said. He's leading. The next morning, Sheriff Donna Harrow showed up with a cigarette half-burned between her fingers and her coat already soaked. You pulled footage without clearance, she said to Caleb, voice like gravel. You followed a woman into the woods based on a stray dog. Then you brought her back holding evidence from a potential crime scene. Caleb crossed his arms. You want me to say I'd do it differently? Donna looked at him for a long time. You ever think maybe that girl was never supposed to be found? That girl is Evelyn's niece. That girl, Donna said, stabbing out her cigarette, was last seen in a backyard with a 6-foot privacy fence and a lock gate. Either someone carried her over it or someone let her out. Evelyn had been listening from the hallway. She stepped into the office, pale but steady. Do you think I let her out, Sheriff? Donna didn't answer. Evelyn's voice was sharp. Because if you do, just say it. I think grief makes people do strange things, Donna said evenly. Like follow dogs into the woods hoping they'll find something that explains the ache in their chest. Caleb stepped between them. We found a shoe, a camera, and someone was there. That's not grief. That's evidence. Donna sighed and rubbed her face. You want to reopen the case, Caleb. Fine. But you're on your own. No overtime. No backup. If this goes sideways, it's your badge. She left without waiting for a response. By dusk, Caleb was back in the woods. This time, Evelyn was with him. I used to come here as a kid, she said, walking beside him down the overgrown trail. We'd play pretend. Witches, monsters, secret fortresses. But one summer, something changed. What do you mean? My sister stopped coming. Said it didn't feel safe anymore. We were 12. Caleb looked around. The trees pressing close here. Light didn't reach the forest floor. There was a stillness, like everything was holding its breath. She said the trees whispered. Evelyn added, almost to herself. They reached the shed again just as the last of the sunlight died. Evelyn stepped inside, while Caleb circled the perimeter, flashlight sweeping across moss and underbrush. She knelt by the pile of children's belongings. This time, she looked carefully. A baby sock, a girl's sweatshirt, a hairbrush with a name scraped off. She reached into the mud and pulled something out, a notebook. The pages were water damaged, some stuck together, but one was still legible, scribbled in shaky handwriting. He doesn't come when the men are here. Only when we're alone. He doesn't like them. But I think he's trying to help. Evelyn's breath caught. Then a growl echoed from the trees. Caleb froze outside, gun raised. The shepherd stepped into the clearing, eyes locked on Evelyn. He dropped something again. A memory card. Mud-stained. Cracked. Caleb walked over slowly and picked it up with gloved fingers. Evelyn stared at the dog. Where are you getting these? The shepherd didn't move. Then, from the woods, a man's voice shouted, You shouldn't be here. Caleb grabbed Evelyn's arm. Go. Now. They ran. Behind them, the dog barked once, sharp and loud. And then nothing. The memory card worked. Caleb slotted it into the lab computer with trembling hands. Evelyn beside him. The first few files were black. Corrupted. Then a thumbnail loaded. A video. It played in shaky handheld footage. The camera moved through a basement. Bare floor. Concrete walls. A single hanging bulb. Children's voices echoed. Laughter muffled. Not happy laughter. Scared. Then a door opened. A little girl stood in the frame. Evelyn clutched the table. That's Maya, Caleb finished, voice hoarse. The girl looked toward the camera. Her lip was bleeding. A man's voice behind the lens spoke. Calm. Chilling. Say it. You wanted to come with me. Maya flinched. The video cut. Evelyn turned away and vomited. Caleb stared at the screen, jaw clenched. He rewound, froze the frame. The wall behind Maya had something written in marker. 4 names. 3 crossed out. 1 Maya circled. It took everything not to burst into Donna Harrow's office and throw the card on her desk. But Caleb had been in Red Hollow long enough to know how politics worked. Instead, he returned to Evelyn's small rental, parked at the edge of town. She was sitting on the porch, blanket around her shoulders. The man's voice, she said quietly. I've heard it before. Caleb sat beside her. Who? Evelyn hesitated. He was friends with our dad. Used to come around when we were kids. Called himself Uncle Ray. Said he worked at the train yard. Caleb stiffened. He knew the name. Raymond Glick, arrested in 1999 for trespassing at an abandoned factory. Questioned once in a separate missing child case, but never charged. He'd vanished in 2007. Evelyn looked at Caleb. You think he's still in Red Hollow? I think he never left. That night, Caleb reviewed the last call logs on the emergency hotline, scanning for any anomalies. One caught his eye. A dropped call from a gas station payphone on Route 12. Logged 12 hours ago. He pulled the CCTV. The image was grainy, low-res, but the timestamp matched. A man in a long coat, and a dog beside him. Caleb froze the frame. The dog had blood on its snout. Meanwhile, somewhere in the woods, a door creaked open in the dark. Inside the old grain silo outside Red Hollow, a figure lit a lantern. Cages lined the walls, rusted, empty, except one. In the corner, a girl lay curled beneath a thin blanket. Not Maya. New. Eyes wide, watching the dog on the other side of the bars. The shepherd didn't bark, didn't growl. He sat down and waited. His eyes never left her. The storm had passed, but Red Hollow didn't feel any brighter. Clouds hung low over the hills, casting everything in a dull gray that matched the mood choking Caleb's office. He stared at the paused CCTV footage again. The payphone. The man. The dog. Evelyn stood behind him, arms wrapped around herself. That's him, she said. That's Ray Glick. Caleb's voice was hollow. The system says he died 17 years ago. Car wreck. Closed case. Someone lied. Evelyn whispered. No. Someone covered it up. The silo was off the old logging road, half collapsed and swallowed by trees. Locals thought it was condemned. Most didn't even know it existed anymore. But the shepherd did. He let Evelyn there before, once when she was a child. She remembered it now, not clearly, more like a flash. A game of hide-and-seek, her sister calling her back, the dog standing between her and the silo, growling like it was warning her, and now it had returned. She and Caleb reached the road just before dusk. No backup, she asked. They won't believe us until there's a body, he said. Or a child. Evelyn nodded, jaw tight. They moved fast. The silo loomed from behind a veil of moss and rust. Its side door hung loose, wind tapping it gently against the frame like a beckoning finger. Caleb raised his weapon. You sure? He asked. Evelyn didn't answer. She just opened the door. The stink at first, mildew, rot, something far worse underneath. Caleb led with a flashlight, Evelyn close behind. Then came the sound, a soft whimper. The beam swept the room. Dust, chains, molded hay, and a cage in the far corner. A girl, dark hair, thin, terrified. Caleb rushed forward and yanked the door open, cradling her carefully. It's okay, he said. You're safe now. But the girl pointed past him. He's still here. Behind them, something shifted. Raymond Glick stepped out of the shadows like he'd always belonged there. Older, gaunter, but unmistakably the same man from a video. His eyes were dead. Cold. He held a hunting knife in one hand, a length of chain in the other. You shouldn't be here, he said to Evelyn. She stepped in front of the girl. You took her. You took Maya. Ray's smile barely moved. They were given, every one of them, left behind, broken homes, addicts, people no one would miss. Evelyn's breath caught. "You're lying." "I saved them," he whispered. "I gave them a place where no one could hurt them again." Caleb raised his gun, dropped the knife. Ray looked at him and laughed. "You think you're going to stop this? It's bigger than me, bigger than any of you." That's when the shepherd stepped between them. He came from the shadows, silent, soaked in mud, eyes blazing. Ray's hand twitched. The dog lunged. The knife clattered to the ground. Ray went down hard, screaming, trying to shield his face. The shepherd tore into him, not for the kill, but the maim. Jaw to wrist, teeth to shoulder. Evelyn pulled the girl to safety. Caleb shouted, "Enough," and fired a warning shot. The dog stopped instantly, stepping back, blood on its muzzle. Ray writhed, groaning. Caleb moved in and cuffed him, rough. "I want names," Caleb said. "All of them. Now." Ray's lip curled. "You think this ends with me?" Caleb didn't answer, because he didn't think that. He knew it didn't. The silo held more than one cage. 3 were empty, each with names scratched into the metal base. Grace, Eli, Maya, and one more, Hope, the girl they'd found. Maya's body was never recovered. Ray refused to speak of her, but Evelyn knew, in her bones. She remembered something else now, a stormy night years ago. Her sister running home, muddy and crying, saying something about a man who tried to follow. Evelyn had never asked what happened after, and her sister had never told her. Now she knew why. Her sister had seen Ray back then, and lied to keep her safe. Maya was taken because of it, and Evelyn had spent her whole life believing it was her fault. The shepherd disappeared the night Ray was arrested. No one saw him again. Search teams went back into the woods with drones, dogs, and sensors. They found bones, remnants, but no bodies intact, no survivors. Ray Glick was taken into federal custody. But 2 weeks later, he was found dead in his cell. No explanation, no witnesses, just blood, and one long claw mark on the inside of his throat. Months passed. Hope, the girl from the silo, went to live with a foster family in Ohio. Evelyn visited twice. Hope always asked about the dog. "Will he come back?" she'd ask. Evelyn never knew what to say. Winter came hard that year. Red Hollow buried itself in snow. On Christmas Eve, Evelyn sat outside Ridgeview Hospital, watching the parking lot fill with slush. Her sister was inside, finally getting the help she needed. Their bond wasn't fixed, but it wasn't broken anymore either. She leaned back on the bench. Then she saw him, the shepherd, standing by the woods again. He looked older, or maybe it was the snow in his fur, but his eyes were the same. She stood slowly. He didn't move, didn't approach, just watched her, like he was waiting for something. Evelyn stepped forward. The dog turned and walked into the woods. This time, she didn't follow. She understood now. He wasn't hers. He never was. He belonged to the ones who'd been taken, to the ones still out there, to the ones who were lost, and the ones still waiting to be found. Quiet fade to black. If the story stayed with you, consider leaving a like or sharing it. Not for hype, just so it reaches someone else who needs a quiet reminder that some ghosts protect and some monsters bleed.